This is the second session of the current affairs and 2021. We are going in a focused way of 2021 examination only in the current affairs session. At present selects the candidates every year for Indian civil services through a competitive examination. At the same time, sometimes in a particular government office or in a particular department, there are one or two vacancies. Those vacancies also sometimes at a senior level, not in the junior, low level vacancy. Low level means that the entry level, not entry level vacancy, it is a senior level vacancy. Normally, when one or two senior level vacancies are happening in a particular department, they don't go by any, and the qualifications required for that will be much higher. Then they don't go normally for a competitive examination or a popular selection process. They are going for a recruitment process. Recruitment means that instead of a competitive examination, they will invite applications from the eligible candidates having adequate experience suitable for that particular position and do an interview and select. That is happening till now. UPSC was also doing certain recruitment for certain central government positions, and state governments were doing certain recruitment for certain state level positions. Now, from now, the Union Cabinet has decided that all recruitments in India, obviously, Railway has a senior level one or two vacancies. Ministry of Finance has one or two vacancies in the senior level. All the departments or all the government institutions under central government of India and will report, and even not only central government, even public sector banks also. If banks have vacancies at higher level, obviously the lower level vacancies they will fill up through the IBPS examination or the SBI examination. Some of you might have attempted. Then higher level vacancies, if public sector banks have or central government offices have any higher level vacancy, instead of they are recruiting directly. So far, if Ministry of Education at Government of India has two vacancies at a higher level, they were giving a recruitment notice. Sometimes in the newspaper you might have seen that Ministry of Education recruitment notice, Ministry of Foreign Affairs recruitment notice. Yes, only one or two vacancies will be there. Instead of that, from now, all central government agencies and the public sector banks, they should report their vacancies into an agency named as National Recruitment Agency. Then every organization at central level and the public sector banks, they will report their vacancies to the National Recruitment Agency, and the National Recruitment Agency will call application from all interested candidates all over India, and they will conduct a recruitment examination. Then through that recruitment examination, in a more transparent way, from now the recruitment into higher positions will be done. Earlier, lot of lack of transparency was there. Obviously, many people don't know such a vacancy came. Yes, in ministry, every time we cannot check the each and every vacancy notified by each department. If there is a vacancy in Ministry of Education, nobody comes to know. Very few people comes to know. The people who are already inside the office, they will inform some of their friends and relatives, and they will apply and they will get it. Now, like UPSC, if there is a National Recruitment Agency, and National Recruitment Agency will bring the notification for recruitment every 6 months, then we have a clear-cut idea. Every job aspirant and will have a clear-cut idea, like UPSC brings notification in the month of February every year. Similarly, every year 2 times, every 6 months there will be a notification, and every 6 months there will be an examination also. Then every 6 months they will conduct examination. Then the calendar will be in the mind of every aspirant, and everybody need to check only the National Recruitment Agency's website and they can apply. Yes, more easier and more transparent in the recruitment than the earlier system of each departments were doing the recruitment. Then we can see that the Union Cabinet has decided to set up a National Recruitment Agency. It is a new agency. Then it is established by a decision of Union Cabinet. Then National Recruitment Agency is what type of organization? Whether it is a constitutional organization, statutory organization, or executive organization. National Recruitment Agency is an executive organization. In the examination, it comes that the recently, sometimes which of the following statements are true regarding National Recruitment Agency. Sometimes the statement number 1, they will give the recently established National Recruitment Agency is a statutory body. Wrong. Yes. Then you have to take care because it is established by a Union Cabinet decision. The proposed National Recruitment Agency will conduct common preliminary examination for various recruitments in the central government and the public sector banks. Then they will conduct a preliminary examination. From there, they will go for a mails or interview. Then final selection will be them. Then common eligibility test, that is the preliminary examination of the National Recruitment Agency, will be held twice in a year. Then every 6 months there will be examination. Then common eligibility test, another important speciality of this examination is that presently all of you know whether UPSC, SSC or any central government agencies examinations, the question paper will be prepared in only 2 languages, Hindi and English. Am I right? And only Hindi and English question papers are available. In the National Recruitment Agency's examination, one major development is that question paper will be printed in 12 major Indian languages. When you are applying for the job, you can mention that in which language you want the question paper to be printed. If you want Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, then you can mention that you will get the Telugu question paper, you will get a Tamil question paper. It is a good advantage. And in my opinion, UPSC should also do the same thing because especially in the CSAT paper, comprehension paper, many students fail because they are weak in English, unable to read and catch up the statement in English. At the same time, students coming from Hindi medium, they can easily read the Hindi and understand. If the same paragraph is given in Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, it will be helpful for the students from different states of India. Am I right? Yes. Then anyway, the common eligibility test will be conducted in 12 major Indian languages. Sometimes when you see the statement, you might feel it is wrong because all central government examinations question papers are only in 2 languages, but this is a specialty of National Recruitment Agency. Then to begin with, that's the common eligibility exam test will cover recruitments made by 3 agencies: Staff Selection Commission, Railway Recruitment Board, and Institute of Banking Personnel Selection. Initially, they will take over. The National Recruitment Agency will take over the recruitments which were earlier done by Staff Selection Commission, SSC, Railway Recruitment Board, RRB, and Institute for Banking Personnel Selection. And these 3 agencies, whatever recruitments they were doing, initially the National Recruitment Agency will take over this, and this will be expanded in a phased manner. Then it will be again expanded into other agencies in a step-by-step manner. And another important specialty is that UPSC conducts examination, but preliminary examination in one state, sometimes 2, 3, maximum 4, 5 exam centers will be the, am I right? For UPSC examination, civil services examination, in one state, maximum 4 to 5 exam centers are the, but the National Recruitment Agency will have 1,000 exam centers all over India. 1,000 exam centers means that each district in India will have 1 exam center minimum. Some districts, larger districts, will have 2 exam centers also. Then each district in India will have an exam center. That is also a good idea because presently all exam centers are in urban area. The rural students have to spend a lot of money. Obviously, UPSC, there is some application fee is 100 rupees. But the money we are spending to attend examination is much higher. Sometimes a rural student from far away village has to travel 1 day ahead of the preliminary examination, has to book a hotel and stay there. Obviously, India is a country of large number of poor people. Then our exam systems are not poor friendly. But this exam, the common eligibility test, is a poor friendly examination. We want to remove the currently prevalent urban bias in the examination. Then it will be held in 1,000 exam centers across India. In a bid to remove the currently prevalent urban bias, there will be an examination center in every district of the country. One exam center will be that. That is also a unique point. You should definitely remember, because sometimes when these statements are coming in the examination, if you are going by your own guess, you may might it as a wrong answer, because you'll think that how it is possible to have exam center in each district. Then 1000 exam centers they are planning. Next one, there are 117 aspirational districts. Then in these 117 aspirational districts under Aspirational India scheme, then there will be a special trust, a special emphasis on creating examination infrastructure in 117 aspirational districts. In the last class, in the class on the budget 2021-22, we have discussed the aspirational districts program. I hope you remember. We have discussed the aspirational districts program in the budget. Then my point is that 117 aspirational districts we have discussed in the class on the budget. Then sometimes the number differs, because the number into the aspirational districts are being added sometimes. Then presently 117 aspirational districts are there. These aspirational districts are the districts with extreme backwardness. These districts with extreme backwardness, we call them as aspirational districts. Then the 117 aspirational districts with extreme backwardness, in those districts, and there will be special emphasis for recruitment agencies examination. They will motivate the youth from these districts to appear the exam and qualify the examination. And the common eligibility test will be the first level test to shortlist candidates, and score will be valid for 3 years. Now, by conducting a common eligibility test, it will be the initial test, and we will shortlist the candidates who is the rank number 1, rank number 2, rank number 3. And after conducting an examination, that exam list will be valid for the 3 years. That means, and within next 3 years, whatever vacancies are coming up, and a suitable person from these lists and will be filling up the vacancy. Suitable person means that sometimes you are rank number 1, but a vacancy came. In that particular vacancy, MSc biotechnology is important. You don't have MSc biotechnology. The rank number 10 person is the first person having MSc biotechnology, then he will be appointed. Then this list will be kept among the people, and whenever a vacancy comes, among those who have qualification from them, the topper will be selected for that particular vacancy. And there shall be no restriction on the number of attempts to be taken by a candidate. In UPSC, we have minimum number of attempts. General category can have 6 attempts up to the age of 32. OBC can have 9 attempts up to the age of 30, up to the age of 35, and SC, ST unlimited number of attempts up to the age of 37. Similarly, in National Recruitment Agency examination, a person can appear any number of times, but there will be age limit. Upper age limit is not declared so far. It will be declared by the National Recruitment Agency. In future, it is just formed only. Then they are working on the terms and conditions of the examination. And there will be upper age limit will be there. Till that age, any number of times a person can appear the National Recruitment Agency examination. Age relaxation for SC, ST, OBC candidates as per the existing rules will also apply in the National Recruitment Agency examination. I hope you understood the National Recruitment Agency examination. Next one, Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana. And Garib means poor. Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana, it is a program for giving the employment for the poor people. And this is a scheme launched to boost the livelihood of the opportunities of people in rural India due to the COVID-19. Due to COVID-19, the people in rural India, majority of them were working in urban India. You might have seen during the lockdown one, many migrant laborers were walking back to home. Yes, many migrant laborers were walking back to home. Obviously, that time it was somewhere we were able to survive. Now, even we are moving into a limit into a stage and where we will be unable to survive. An acute shortage of oxygen, yes, and in because if we cannot imagine a situation where people are dying out of the shortage of the oxygen, because our life is based on oxygen only. Anyway, and let us work together and let us come out of this crisis as soon as possible. My point is that during the COVID-1, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the Mega Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana, aimed to boost the livelihood opportunities in rural India amid the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. And what is the main thing is that the people who went back to their own districts, and the people who went back to their own districts due to COVID-19, and they will be given the employment under this scheme. The first priority of the scheme is to meet the immediate requirement of workers who have gone back to their districts, the migrant workers from urban cities of India, especially from the state of Kerala. Large number of migrant workers went back to their home and who have gone back to their districts by providing them with livelihood opportunities. And the focus is on rural citizens only. That scheme is only for the rural India. The villages will join the program through the common service centers and Krishi Vigyan Kendras. Then through the Krishi Vigyan Kendras in the village and through the common service centers in the villages, they can enroll for the program. Government will give them certain employment or the job. At least for the next 90 days, the program job will be given to the people under Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana, which is a scheme to address the crisis of the unemployment created by COVID-19. PM Cares Fund, again another matter related to COVID-19, and now also PM Cares Fund is under discussion. Yes, PM Cares Fund. It was obviously already there is a national disaster management fund, and there is a national disaster management fund that was already existing. Earlier prime ministers of India, whenever a disaster happens, for example an earthquake happened or a flood happened, cyclone happens, they use the public fund, that is the national disaster management fund. It is a public fund. They asked the public to donate money to them. Yes, and that National Disaster Management Fund is an official fund under Government of India. Then it will be all the money coming there will be audited by the CAG, and all the details of the National Disaster Management Fund will be available through the RTI. Yes, and the National Disaster Management Fund will be audited. Obviously, every fund in India should be audited. But how many of you support that? Every fund in India should be audited, because auditing is not a crime. Auditing is a simple verification. Who does that? And constitutional authority CAG, Controller and Auditor General. It is a part of democracy. There is a CAG in India, Controller and Auditor General of India. CAG is discussed under which article of the Constitution? And under which article is the CAG? Article 148. 148 to 151 of the Indian Constitution discusses the CAG. Now, the point is that CAG auditing was there earlier. When COVID-19 crisis came, Prime Minister of India or Government of India instituted another non-public fund. That is not a public fund. Public fund means a fund under Government of India. That fund was named as Prime Minister's Citizen Assistance and Relief Emergency Situation Fund. Name is PM Cares Fund. Was launched to attract public contribution in the wake of COVID-19. Government has registered it as not as a public fund. When a fund is a public fund, obviously, and public fund means government fund. This has been registered as an public charitable trust. Because obviously, you can also create a charitable trust. Similarly, Prime Minister of India created a charitable trust. Then there is a situation of this fund. Then this is registered not as a government fund. It is registered as a public charitable trust. That is why somebody challenged that it is Prime Minister of India taking money from the people, and this is indirectly, if it is not directly, indirectly under Government of India only. That is why it should be audited by CAG. That was a case in the Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court rejected that demand. So according to Supreme Court of India, this is a public charitable trust fund, not the government fund. A charity trust has been created by Prime Minister. It is the money coming to that. Then CAG legally does not have the power to audit a public charitable trust. Hence, according to Supreme Court judgment, the PM Cares Fund cannot be audited by the CAG. Another thing is also then can you get the data? If you are asking now, obviously people of the nation have a concern now, and how much planning government has done to produce oxygen in India. Then if you are asking now government that I want to know from PM Cares Fund how much money were allocated for the oxygen plants in India, because it is a pre-plan, and to address any extreme situation of COVID-19. The PM Cares Fund was created to address COVID-19. We should have made an early care on how to address a future situation if the situation worsens. That is the disaster management. Am I right? What is the meaning of disaster management? Thinking today, you should be able to predict that what will be the nation if a nation goes to an extreme situation, how we will address that. That type of management is called as the logical management, intelligent management. Otherwise, some problem happened today, bringing oxygen from UAE and Germany and managing. That is, if money is there, we can do. But the exact targeted management is that, then the ability of a ruler is that ruler should be able to forecast what is the worst situation going to happen and address that. If we had done that, this much lives should not have been lost. I can tell you that the only state in India having the oxygen surplus at present is the state of Kerala. And from the state of Kerala, oxygen is supplied to Karnataka, oxygen is supplied to Goa. And few days back, I saw the tweet of the Goa health minister thanking the Kerala health minister and on supplying oxygen to Goa. All other states in India are suffering from, majority of the states are suffering from oxygen shortage. And why? You can see that under PM Cares Fund, I saw a news that 14 oxygen plants money was sanctioned for the state of Uttar Pradesh. Not even a single one is functional. Money was sanctioned, government did not act. And in the state of Kerala, in 2020 April, in 1 minute, almost 50 liters of oxygen production capacity was there. Now at today, and more than 1,250 liters oxygen capacity per 1 minute production capacity is there. That means new plants were established, money was utilized. And this one we can call as the futuristic thinking and development. And development, addressing a situation, addressing an emergency by thinking what extreme situation might come in future. Yes. And even in February, we were exporting oxygen, thinking that India will not need the oxygen. And now we have a shortage of oxygen. Then a future thinking is that, because obviously COVID-19 when came in 2020, nobody we can blame. It was unprecedented. We don't have any experience of the earlier disasters. And Vasuri was the disaster, and Vasuri vaccination done during the 1970s was 60s, 70s, I think. And earlier that a pandemic we can compare with COVID-19 happened in India in 2030, that is cholera. And cholera pandemic was there in 1920-30, this much severe or severe than this was that cholera. But nobody who experienced the cholera situation is alive now. Yes, nobody, and even Prime Minister, any other minister, nobody experienced the cholera situation. That is why when COVID-19 pandemic came initially, everybody had no awareness. Nobody has no idea how to manage it. Then sometimes failure in the initial stage is acceptable because it was an unprecedented crisis. But failure after 1 year is unjustifiable. Nobody can justify. It is a failure of the administration only, failure of the governance only. Because we are failing, we are unable to overcome the COVID-19 crisis even after 1 year. A second wave was predicted everywhere. We ignored it. And we made the massive rallies, massive programs, and massive gatherings, and we made in India. And who made it? Our leaders promoted that. Then that has reduced the seriousness of the people. Everybody removed the mask. Yes. Why we removed the mask? Our leaders also removed the mask. Yes. And because when what leaders are showing, that will be what people are doing. and everybody removed the mask and everybody had no fear to gather each other, then the situation got worse. And no, because if we are not going into a second lockdown, obviously nobody is safe. And anybody feels that I am safe? No. If a person died near to you due to COVID-19, the gap between you and him is only a virus. Yes. And only an intangible virus is the gap between a person who is still alive and a person who died. That is why this is a serious situation. All of us, you are taking care of all the people around you. Then by protecting ourselves, and it is the security of our nation, because now the security of our nation, life of the people of our nation lies in our hands, in the individual's hands. Then each individual, I request all of you, my students, and please stay maximum possible inside and save yourself and save the nation. Yes, anyway, my point is, question will come, PM Cares Fund. If a statement comes that as per the law, PM Cares Fund cannot be audited by CAG, it is a correct statement. PM Cares Fund, as per the law, it does not come under the ambit of RTI, Right to Information. The right to information applications were dismissed by arguing that fund was not a public authority. Then fund is not a public authority. Are its trustees. Three cabinet ministers are the trustees of the fund, and the Ministry of Corporate Applications for the RTI telling that it is not a public authority. Anyway, there is a lack of transparency in the fund. In a democracy, better to be transparent. How many of you believe so? In a democracy, better government should be transparent. And many of you must have donated money to PM Cares. I have done my part. Then many people might have done the money and done the contribution. And those who have done the contribution, actively used, and whether the money is used for the well governance of the country during the COVID-19 to help the poor people. And we should have those who contributed money, not contributed also. In a democracy, it is not a matter whether you contributed or not, but and the people should have some access to the information regarding the fund. That is personally my opinion. And because when a crisis is there, definitely the people have to cooperate with the government. People cooperated also. That is why large amount of money came there. When people are cooperating, government should cooperate with the people also. If they have some concern, that should be solved. Next one, National Council for Transgender Persons. National Council for Transgender Persons. We have National Commission for Scheduled Caste and National Commission for Scheduled Caste. Many people have written it is Article 338. National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. National Commission for Scheduled Tribes is also a constitutional body under Article 338A. National Commission for Backward Classes. National Commission for Backward Classes, and it is also a constitutional body under Article 338B by 102nd Amendment Act of Indian Constitution in 2018. In 2018, by 102nd Amendment Act, and we added National Commission for Backward Classes also into the Constitution of India as a constitutional body. But National Council for Transgender Persons, and it was recently established by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment and constituted the National Council for Transgender Persons under Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019. Then it is established under Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019. That means it is a statutory body. Then National Council for Transgender Persons is a statutory body under the Protection of Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019. I hope you got it. Then this body and the chairperson will be Union Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment. We can see into the composition. What is their duty? As we studied in the National Commission for SC, ST and backward classes, making investigation. If there is any violation of the rights of the transgender persons, make investigation. suggest to government to take action on the people who are the culprits. If a government officer has made any discrimination against the transgender persons, asking government to take action, they can advise to government on how to plan for the development of transgender people. Whatever functions we discussed in the class of the SC and ST for the National Commission for SC/ST, and same functions are there for transgender persons by the National Council for Transgender Persons. Then Union Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment will be the chairperson, ex officio chairperson, and Union Minister of State for Social Justice and Empowerment will be the vice chairperson. Then Union Minister of State means the junior minister in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment will be the vice chairperson of the National Council for Transgender Persons. The other members of the council include representatives of various ministries, departments, 5 representatives of the transgender community, representatives of National Human Rights Commission, National Commission for Women, representatives of the state governments and union territories, and experts representing different NGOs will also be there in the National Council for Transgender Persons. A member of National Council other than ex officio member shall hold office, because ex officio members are the chairperson is an ex officio member, vice chairperson is also an ex officio member, and then other members other than these ex officio members, because then representatives of the National Human Rights Commission, NCW, is also an ex officio member. The direct members, the five members from the transgender community shall hold office for a term of 3 years from the date of his or her nomination. The person from the date of the person's appointment, 3 years is the term given to a member who is not an ex officio member. Ex officio member means that officially they are the other position, Minister of Social Welfare and Empowerment, and officially he is the minister. Ex officially, extra officially, he is a member of the commission. His term will be co-terminus with that position. Whenever he is sitting as the minister, he can or she can continue as the member of this organization. The 5 members from transgender community, and they will have 3 years term. Then that is the National Council for Transgender Persons. In these councils and commissions recently established, one thing you have to mainly look into that, what is the nature of that one? Is it a statutory? Is it an executive body? Is it a constitutional body? That one statement definitely will be there from that aspect. Next one, Gramodyog Vikas Yojana. Gramodyog Vikas Yojana, definitely it is a program of the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. For mainly the aim of this Gramodyog Vikas Yojana is that in a village, there are certain people who are expert in some occupation, some manufacturing, giving them modern training, simply understanding. Gramodyog Vikas Yojana, and Gramodyog means that rural employment and rural profession, Vikas Development Yojana. If there is certain people who are expert in manufacturing something and they establish a manufacturing center in a rural area, government wants to provide them certain training and skill development and improve their skill. That is the aim of the Gramodyog Vikas Yojana. It is a program already existing. But recently, and what is the development into that? Government has decided, or the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises has decided to include the artisans or the employees work involved in manufacturing of agarbatti. Agarbatti, all of you will be using, and for the good smell, sometimes to defeat mosquito, whatever purpose, anyway, and sometimes for holy purpose and religious purpose. For different purpose in India, people are using agarbatti. Then the what is in English agarbatti? What is the English term of agarbatti? Yeah, incense stick. Yeah, incense stick. And then for the employees of the incense stick, and we have given. Yeah, we have included them under the Gramodyog Vikas Yojana. Then by including them under Gramodyog Vikas Yojana, by including them under this one, they will also get the modern training by Government of India or Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. Then research and Gramodyog Vikas Yojana, it has certain components. Four components are the one is research and development and product innovation. How to how to innovate. Now agarbatti, lot of products are already there. Recently agarbatti has been added. Then whatever products are included in that, government will assist the producers to do the research and development and to innovate their products. Activities of existing dedicated verticals of village industries. That means under Gramodyog Vikas Yojana, government wants to improve activities of existing dedicated verticals of village industry. In village industry, what are the industries existing at present, and that has to be promoted. For example, this includes agro-based and food processing industry. Government want to improve mineral-based industries and handmade paper, leather, and plastic industry, among others. Lot of other industries are there. These industries government want to promote through the Gramodyog Vikas Yojana. Capacity building and skill training. Government will provide the skill training for the employees of these industries, including agarbatti at present, and build their capacity. Marketing and publicity. How to market the products, obviously that is also important. Then this is the era of modern digital marketing, online marketing. How to do all the modern types of marketing, that will also be given to the people involved in this particular sector. Next one, Atal Bimit Vyakti Kalyan Yojana. That is another important scheme of the government of India. Atal Bimit Vyakti Kalyan Yojana. Basically, this is a insurance scheme for the employees. This Employees State Insurance Corporation has launched a scheme named as Atal Bimit Vyakti Kalyan Yojana. And this scheme provides unemployment benefit to the workers covered under the scheme. That is, obviously, during COVID-19, lot of people lost their job. And the people who lost their job, this was an earlier program. My point now is that during COVID-19, government has made certain relaxations under this Yojana. Government has made certain relaxation. Obviously, the beneficiaries will be those who have joined this Yojana earlier, Atal Bimit Vyakti Kalyan Yojana. This is the personal employment insurance scheme. If a person, earlier he was an employee of any corporate or any company, that time he had taken this policy, then definitely he will get the benefit of the Yojana at present. When the COVID-19 came, the scheme provides unemployment benefit to the workers covered under the Employees State Insurance Scheme. Now, point is that earlier government, when the policy started, government had declared that if a person loses the job, imagine a person lost the job, for next 90 days, that is next 3 months, for next 90 days, he will be paid the 25% of the earlier job salary. If earlier the salary was 1 lakh rupees for a person, he lost the job of 1 lakh rupees, then if he is a member of Employees State Insurance Scheme under Atal Bimit Vyakti Kalyan Yojana, he was able to get 25,000 rupees. 25% of his earlier salary will be paid under this insurance scheme. But, and due to COVID-19, we have increased that into 50%. Those who lost the job, who were a member of the Employees State Insurance Scheme under Atal Bimit Vyakti Kalyan Yojana, they will be given 50% of their salary for next 3 months immediately after losing the job. Within 3 months, you find out another job. It's a good scheme only. A person lost the job, immediately he will be in poverty. He will get the 50% of his earlier salary for next 3 months. Within 3 months, you find out another job. If you are giving that benefit forever, nobody will search for another job. Then it is a breakup period of 3 months. We will support, the government will support the person. Then payment of relief has been enhanced to 50% of the average wages from the earlier 25% of the average wages payable up to maximum 90 days of unemployment. Instead of the release becoming payable 90 days after unemployment, it shall be due for payment after 30 days. Earlier, system was that before COVID-19 came, the system was that the person has to wait for 90 days. Obviously, immediately after he loses the job, For 90 days, he will be in poverty only. The government system was that after 90 days, he will be paid the 3 months 25% salary into the bank account. Obviously, more than getting money at the time of need is important. That is why presently government changed it that if a person loses job, 1 month finishes, 1 month 50% salary will be given to him. Second month finishes, second month 50% salary will be given to him. Third month finishes, every monthly he will be paid the 50% allowance. And now it shall be due for payment after 30 days. Now the insured person can another one is that earlier under the employee state insurance scheme, employee state insurance corporation scheme, if a person loses the job, application should be forwarded to employee state insurance corporation by the company. Imagine one company dismissed one person from the job due to COVID-19, then company has to report to employee state insurance corporation. Yes, presently we have removed that system. Instead of company reporting to the insurance company or employee state insurance corporation, the person who lost his job, he can directly apply in any branch office of the employee state insurance corporation. Go to nearby branch office of the employee state insurance corporation and he can apply himself. The insured person can submit the claim directly to the employee state insurance corporation branch office instead of the claim being forwarded by the last employer, and the payment shall be made directly into the bank account of the insured person. Then the insured person's bank account directly the payment will come. The insured person should have been insurable employment for a minimum period of 2 years before the unemployment. He should have been in the employment where the insurance is provided, should have worked for 2 years, worked only 3 months, dismissed, no insurance, and shall have contributed for not less than 78 days. Minimum, he joined the program, employee state insurance scheme or Atal Bimit Vyakti Kalyan Yojana. He joined minimum 78 days before the dismissal of the person from the company or the loss of the job. If he joined today, tomorrow the job loss, that means he already had an information I will lose the job. To get a benefit, he joins the scheme. Then minimum 78 days before the loss of job he must have joined. Aadhaar and bank account of the insured person should be linked with the insured person database. Then how we are working, Aadhaar and bank account will be already connected. Then instantly we can verify whether he lost the job or not, and we can transfer the money to the person. For fast delivery of the service, this is an Aadhaar connected service. Yes, I hope it is clear. Now let us move into the next one. Next one is one international affair we are discussing, because I'm mixing up the topics to make it non-boring. Otherwise, if you are going by all government schemes, it will be boring only. When we are changing the topic in between, it is more easier to stay in the memory also. Israel and the UAE. Recently, you might have seen that Israel, the country Israel, was not recognized by any of the Gulf Cooperation Council members. GCC, you might have heard of. GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council, has 6 members: Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain. These are the 6 members of the GCC. In the GCC, nobody recognized Israel because, as per the GCC's claim and the Arab Muslim world claim, Israel is a country established by occupation of the lands of Palestinian Arabs. Israel was established in 1948, I think, by a UN resolution. Israel, the Jews had no country. They gradually started living in Palestine, the state of Palestine, and started purchasing the land from the Arab Palestinians. Then they declared a country is established for the Jews. Then the Jews country, as per the Arab claim and Arab Muslim world claim, it is a country illegally established by the occupation of the Arab Palestinian lands. That is why Arab countries did not accept Israel as a country, did not establish any embassy or no diplomatic relation was there, especially the GCC countries. And among the Arab countries also, more than 50-55 Arab countries are there. Among them, only 3 countries have so far recognized Israel as a country. Only 3 countries have the embassy of Israel. Then Israel people can visit only these 3 countries. Then my point is that recently the third country to have a peace agreement between Israel and with Israel was United Arab Emirates, and the mediator was Donald Trump. Under the mediation of Donald Trump, and a recent agreement has been signed. Peace agreement has been signed between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, UAE. And here, then these discussions were quite long period. The point we have to understand is that only 3 Arab countries are accepting Israel at present. Only one Gulf country among the GCC countries is only United Arab Emirates. UAE is the first country to recognize Israel as a state. As a part of the deal announced by US President Donald Trump, UAE would recognize the state of Israel and establish formal diplomatic relations. That is, UAE will have the Israel embassy, Israel will have the UAE embassy also. While Israel would halt its controversial plan to annex the swaths of Palestinian West Bank. Palestine, it is not a country at present recognized by the UN. Palestine has the only observer status in the UN. Palestine is two portion of land is called as Palestine. One is Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip is one part of Palestine. Second one is the West Bank. These 2 pieces of land is known as Palestine at present. Israel, day by day, they were encroaching into these areas. They were demolishing the Palestinian houses in West Bank, adding those areas gradually into Israel. And the Gaza Strip also, they made multiple attacks on the Gaza Strip, and they were encroaching that land also. Now, point is that Israel agreed to UAE that they will stop their encroachment into the West Bank of Palestine. As Israel agreed one condition of UAE, they will not encroach the land of Arabs in the West Bank. Then UAE signed the agreement. We will have diplomatic relations. That means UAE embassy will be there, export-import between UAE, because UAE is a good market. That is why Israel has an eye on UAE as a good market for the products of the Israel. Then so far they were unable to export anything into UAE. Then UAE is one of the best markets among the Gulf countries. Also, if somebody has visited Dubai, Abu Dhabi, you might have understood there is a huge economic potential in that particular country. Then this is the agreement. UAE will recognize Israel, but Israel should stop their annexation of the West Bank. Then these points you have to understand. Sometimes the term will come because in the geography questions, international geography questions now mostly are related to the places. They will ask that West Bank and is a place in which of the following areas. Then Palestine is the answer. And because of this news, those West Bank, Gaza Strip, and that might come in the examination. Then which are the other 2 Arab countries? 2 Arab countries which earlier recognized Israel are Egypt and Jordan. Then the third Arab country to recognize Israel is UAE. Question might come, and only 3, these Egypt, Jordan, and UAE have recognized. Are the 3 Arab countries, only Arab countries, recognize Israel as a country at present. That is correct. 3 Arab countries have recognized Egypt, Jordan, and UAE. Now, here the problem is that there is another initiative known as Arab Peace Initiative. It is an initiative led by Saudi Arabia. As per the Arab Peace Initiative, and it is an initiative, a Saudi initiative endorsed by the Arab League. Arab League is the organization of the Arab countries. The Arab League, under Arab League, there is an Arab Peace Initiative that was proposed by Saudi Arabia. That Arab initiative tells that there will be diplomatic relationship with Israel by any Arab country, any member of the Arab League, only if Israel withdraws from all the territories they occupied. That means in 1948, whenever UN recognized Israel, whatever territory was there for Israel, and Arab countries are ready to recognize it. Whatever they annexed, because even after 1948, Israel occupied annexed lot of territories of Palestine and annexed lot of territories of Palestine into the Israel. Those occupied territories Israel should give to Palestine. Only when Israel is coming back to the 1948 status of their territory, that time any Arab League member should accept Israel. Now the point is that UAE has violated that initiative. Yes, Israel did not give back the occupied territory to the Palestinians. Still, UAE made the agreement with Israel. Then presently, the Arab Peace Initiative of the Arab League has been violated by UAE. Now, what Arab League will do, and that we have to wait and see. Next one is that, ironically, the UAE's peace agreement comes close on the heels of the Trump administration's back-to-back decision to recognize Jerusalem as. Because another thing is that Jerusalem, it is a holy place for Christians, Muslims, and Jews, for all the three, because everybody believes that their prophets had certain importance in that area, or the prophets recognized, or the messengers of, or the prophets recognized in Quran, Bible, and Torah. Torah is the official holy text of the Jews. Then Bible is the official text of Christians, and Quran for Muslims. And all these three holy texts of these three religions, Jerusalem is an important place. Then Jerusalem, and Muslims are against, or the Arab world is against accepting Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And that is why they were using Tel Aviv as the capital earlier. You might have noticed that Tel Aviv was the earlier capital of Israel. Now the UAE's peace agreement comes during a situation when Donald Trump administration of the United States of America recognized Jerusalem as the Israel's capital. That is something against the claim of the Arabs. And there are some hilly areas in Syria named as Golan Heights. The Golan Heights of Syria was a territory, originally it was a territory of Syria, later occupied by Israel. Then these things, why I'm telling that this Golan Heights might be in the news, might be in the examination, because Golan Heights were the hilly areas of Syria occupied by Israel. And that was also recognized, that America recognized the sovereignty of Israel on the Syrian Golan Heights. Then because mostly from the Central Asia, from the Middle East Asia, one question of geography comes. That question mostly becomes connected to the present current affairs. That is why this Israel, UAE, and these Golan Heights, West Bank, Gaza, and these areas in the news. This question will be simple. Sometimes, which of the following is correct explanation of Golan Heights, or correct regarding Golan Heights? You'll get easily one statement will be these were the Syrian mountain regions occupied by Israel and recently recognized by the US as the sovereignty of Israel. Easily you can get the answer. Yes, but you should have a general awareness on these terms, because when these terms are coming in the examination, under that answer will be very easy if you know. If you don't know, you will be confused among all the four options. That is why Golan Heights, West Bank is in Palestine, Gaza is in Palestine, Golan Heights is in Syrian area occupied by Israel, and Arab Peace Initiative. Arab Peace Initiative is the condition for recognizing Israel as a full country. Recently, UAE has violated that Arab Peace Initiative. Next one, Confucius Institutes. And it is also an easy current affairs. Is it okay if I continue for another half an hour, 20 minutes without giving a break, and we can wind up the session? Because if you are giving break, it will be too much lengthy. Then within 20 minutes, by 12:30, I will wind up the session without taking a break. Yes. Confucius Institutes. What is Confucius Institute? Simple only. And obviously, different countries have a program. For example, I have attended one course like that. Turkey has a program that in Indian universities, they want to establish a course on diploma course on Turkish language. That some Indians, those who are interested Indians, let them learn the Turkish language. And the course fee and other facilities, other expenditure of that will be sponsored by the Turkish government. Similarly, China has a policy. That is, let the people all over the world learn the Chinese language. Then they will communicate with the universities and colleges and other institutes in different countries. If you wish, you can establish a Chinese language learning center. We will give you the financial support. Then whatever expenditure comes, and that will be sponsored by China. Similarly, the Chinese institutes, the Chinese government initiative of establishing the language learning center of Chinese language is known as Confucius Institutes. Then CI, shortly it is called as CI. Confucius Institutes are institutes established mostly inside the universities and colleges by Chinese embassy or Chinese government to educate the people on the basics of the Chinese language. In India also, lot of universities and colleges have the Confucius Institute, because the universities are the autonomous organizations. Universities in India have the power to reach into an MOU, that is Memorandum of Understanding, with an embassy in India, with a foreign country also they can have the tie-up, and they can get the fund from foreign country. They can establish different departments and the programs. No need to take the government permission. Similarly, in India also, different universities and different institutions had the Confucius Institute. Now, in the recent conflict between India and China, China was encroaching into Galwan Valley and the Penang Lake, and all these are geographically important. You have to study those things. And anyway, my point is that when China is encroaching this area, India started taking action on Confucius Institutes in India. That is why it was in news. Then India's Ministry of Education, that's previously the Ministry of Human Resources Development, sent a letter to several institutes, several universities and colleges, seeking information about activities of their Confucius Institute and Chinese language training centers. Because of that, these Confucius Institutes were in news. Then you might get some question, which of the following is the correct explanation of the term Confucius Institute? Don't get confused. That is the Chinese government-sponsored Chinese language learning centers established all over the world. Yes, in India it was in news because of the action of the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of the Human Resource Development. Then next one is Mission Karma Yogi. And this is the last slide, I think I have, and other things, yeah, PM cares one other things we have discussed. Then Mission Karma Yogi. And Mission Karma Yogi, it is a program for us and for the Indian civil servants. Recently, the Union government has rolled out a long overdue to reform the Indian bureaucracy. Obviously, Indian bureaucracy, earlier, many civil servants will be still there who were recruited in 1990s. Yes, 1990s means that if a person was 25 years old in 1990, he became an IAS officer in 1990, and presently he will be and 2020, he will be 55 years old. He will be still sitting in the service. Yes, their training was different. For them, the training given was as per the 1990 training of the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy of Mussoorie. The present training is entirely different because presently we have a highly advanced training system for the civil servants. Am I right? Presently we have a highly advanced training system for civil servants. That is why the old generation of civil servants or the bureaucrats are not matching with the new generation of civil servants. The old generation is that when you go into a government office, you can see on the table lot of files like this pending. Yes, and lot of files will be pending. If you are submitting an application, they will ask you come next week, and when you go next week, they will tell that come after one more week. For getting an application done in a government office, you have to go sometimes multiple times. To avoid this, the new people are very fast and in acting. You cannot find any file pending in front of a new young generation IAS officer, and if you're going to their tablet, will be clean and neat, and they will solve the whatever day-to-day applications they are solving every day, because the training was that way only. That is why government wanted to reform the Indian bureaucracy, and to give again training and again reformation, again the new generation ideas for the old civil servants. Government has launched a scheme called as Mission Karma Yogi. And recently, Union government has rolled out the long overdue reform of the Indian bureaucracy, Mission Karma Yogi. It is a reform mechanism of bureaucracy. The National Program for Civil Services Capacity Building aims to transform capacity building in the bureaucracy through institutional and process reforms. We want to bring the reforms and we want to bring the institutional development under the Mission Karma Yogi. Yes. Then Mission Karma Yogi, simply the question will come, which of the following statements are true regarding Mission Karma Yogi? It is a program for renovating or reforming Indian civil services, then Indian bureaucracy, and especially the existing bureaucracy we want to reform and make them suitable for the modern era. That is the aim of Mission Karma Yogi. Then thank you all. I'm stopping now. We'll meet again. Thank you all. Bye.